Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the world's biggest stars, some of my favourite people and hugely talented people too. Tenors Unlimited are the Rat Pack of Opera, made up of Paul Martin, Jem Sharples and Scott Siscon. They've performed with huge stars like Sting, Lionel Richie, Beyonce, Hayley Westenra and Simply Red, as well as great orchestras including the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra, and appeared at huge events too, like at Wembley Stadium for the FA Cup final. I'm delighted to say that we've got Jem Sharples joining us on the phone now. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks, Alex. Lovely talking to you.
Yeah, it's nice to talk to you too. I love people who are really talented, and I'm a bit picky about who we get on this website. And for me, if you're amazing, you deserve to be on it. And you guys are. I guess this is something that you've been doing all your lives. This isn't something you thought you'd do to be famous.
Absolutely not in the world. No, the group, we set up the group ourselves 14 years ago. With a view, we thought there was nothing like us. Our tagline is, "With the Rat Pack of Opera." We were a real mixture of classics, songs we write ourselves, pop songs, basically anything we think we'd really enjoy, we like the sound of, if we'll give it a go. If we don't think we're doing it justice, we won't sing it. So, but also the element, we got on with mates, and we liked being on stage together, and we thought, well, look, there's nothing really like us. So I think that Russell Watson was probably there, and Hayley was just starting out as a very young girl, Catherine Jenkins, but that was it, really.
Yeah.
And really, there wasn't a group like us out there. And we thought, well, hey, for starters, we're doing it anyway, but let's make it let's try and tell the world about what we do and how we make our music. And we're still trying to do that, yeah.
And you're doing it well and still working, which is brilliant. And we look at the genre itself, that pop classical crossover really has gone from strength to strength. I mean, the names you mentioned are still at it, but then added into that are people like Alfie Boe, who's sort of turned it into an arena-sized gig, hasn't he? That's got to help because it's putting it in the perception of people's minds, I presume.
Absolutely. I think Alfie is very much still in the theatre world as well. He still jumps in and out of his concert work, I think, from what I know, and then goes back into Les Mis and other shows. I think he's actually also just touring with Michael Ball at the minute as well. So a real cross artist there. And then, of course, you've got Il Divo, and hey, but I'm not here to talk about all the others. But what it has done is it's created a real sense of the genre really has taken off. Yes, it has. The sort of popular classical crossover, as I think a lot of people would call it, really is very popular, particularly live, I think, more than anything else.
For me, there's nothing more thrilling to stand in a live venue and hear those harmonies come together. And I wonder how you do that. Is that some form of alchemy that happens just as friends, or is it just hours of practice? Because it's not easy to get it right, is it?
There is an unknown element. I absolutely agree. Like the Bee Gees sort of had it as brothers, the Everly Brothers, and many others. But that sense of making close harmony, not that we are a close harmony group, but making any harmony, I think there has to be some sense of homogeny. But really, it's a lot of work and a lot of time. And one thing we try and have always tried to do is service the tune. So we don't want to put block harmony or harmony over a well-known standard song. For example, if you take Nessun Dorma, everybody knows that as Pavarotti's song primarily now. So what we don't want to do is sing that in a three-part harmony all the way through. It sounds dreadful, and it's not really doing Puccini's wishes of it being a solo any service. So what we've always said is we're going to try and always acknowledge the tune, so people can still feel they're having that solo performance, and we'll bring in a mix in the voices in various areas to bring out more colours. But we will know if we can't service the tune and do the tune justice, we probably think we're failing.
I can't imagine there's anything more thrilling than standing in front of a big orchestra. Even a small orchestra is amazing. But when you're studying something like the Royal Philharmonic, it must be breathtaking to hear that sound behind you.
It's quite jaw-dropping when you first... I think for me, it's always the rehearsal period, because you come from nothing, you've been in your dressing room, you walk out into the rehearsal, and I always find that, actually, that whole process is mind-blowing even now, because you go from nothing to this 30, 40, 50, whatever piece orchestra. Once you're in performance to the audience, obviously that has a different excitement because you're trying to communicate everything to the audience. But the indulgent time for me as the artist, and I think the guys would say the same, is in the rehearsal process when you're working with the conductor and you're discussing what you're going to do, particularly if it's a piece of your own. I think that's even more exciting. You think, wow, and to hear it, for example, one of our own pieces was we sung on Friday night's music night, and to hear the BBC Concert Orchestra play that, and you think, wow, that's a song called Viva la Vita, Sento. Really is, you just can't imagine that's suddenly gone from black dots on a page to being broadcast down to the world, really. So it's a wonderful thing. It makes it all worthwhile, that's for sure.
The BBC has many critics, and I've been quite damning over the years, but the one thing that is amazing about them is those 3 orchestras they have, and the fact they keep live music on the radio and on TV is stunning. And I think for people like you, without them, you'd struggle because they do open many doors, don't they?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that the BBC is acknowledged as being the benchmark of broadcasting around the world. I mean, the thing that stands out in my mind probably over the last 5 years, or at least, I think possibly more, would be the Royal Wedding, and the music, the way it was broadcast and produced for the wedding was just unbelievable. It was to hear live music from a cathedral broadcast and produced like it was. I've not heard anything like it, and you think how manufactured music can be when people are just singing pop songs. You think how wonderful this was. It really shows the professionalism and the expertise of the people involved in producing it. Yeah, very much so.
I just spent about 5 weeks in Las Vegas, and hearing so many legends not sing live and use click track and pre-recorded bits here and there was somewhat depressing. Is it amazing to you that people can charge for a ticket and not sing live?
It's totally wrong, but I understand the pressures on wanting to do it. I think the pressures are there across the board. I think if you've paid to see a top name and that name has got laryngitis or that name is not well, but well enough to at least walk on stage, I can understand the pressures on that artist and the expectations of the audience. I can understand why it's done, but it's also done all across the board, it seems to be now. Often you'll have artists who are miming who aren't even established, because it's considered to be the right thing to do, and that's not how to learn your craft or study your craft. It's certainly, I think that is shortchanging the audience. Yes, it's. But technology is very, very advanced now. So if somebody can't actually sing in tune, they can be tuned very, very quickly, even live now.
That is somewhat surprising, isn't it, that you'd stand on a stage and take that risk in the first place?
I mean, I even saw some footage, I think, of Meatloaf when he collapsed on stage, and as he collapsed, I think,
yes, he was still singing, wasn't he?
He was still singing, so it makes you wonder whether he was singing at all. But no, I hope he's okay. But I mean, but then again, that's an example of the pressures on great artists. That people expect a certain sound, they want it, and to be honest, I've been to quite a few concerts at the O2. From probably from 20 feet, you couldn't tell whether an artist was miming or not.
Right.
So most of the audience could be given something that was completely pre-recorded. They probably wouldn't know.
One of my favourite places to see boys like you is in a cathedral or in a venue where the sound is amplified by itself. You mentioned Russell Watson earlier. He did a cathedral tour a couple of years ago, and it's magnificent. Yeah. You look at what you do, I guess microphones to you are almost irrelevant because you guys can come together and make that sound whether you're amplified or not.
A microphone for us, obviously, if we're at an award ceremony or if we're in a big conference hall, like a lot of our work requires, it naturally has to be amplified because you're singing to, say, 400 people in a very dead space. But also the sort of songs we sing. If we're singing 1 minute, we're singing the Pearlfishers duet, and then the next minute we're singing La Mer or Under the Sea, for example. The contrast of those two songs, one is very much a crooner and one is obviously high art opera. The extreme of those voice, the voice requirements is such that really to keep the consistency, we mic that. But for example, if we were very honoured a few years ago to sing at Sir Bobby Robson's memorial in Durham Cathedral, well, of course that wouldn't be microphoned, and we sung with the organ there to 1,000 people without mics. So it's horses for courses, but for the most part, our show is as a theatrical experience, needs the microphones because of all the different colours of songs that we're singing. If we're singing Sting's Fragile, that's a very soft voice as opposed to, say, Nessun Dorma or Time to Say Goodbye. So really, we're such an extreme in the vocal colours that we do, to keep the consistency, we tend to keep them mics. But many a time in a smaller venue, we've started without microphones, then we pick them up, and the microphones will join us for things like sort of Can't Take My Eyes Off of You or whatever we happen to be singing. It's the right sort of colour. It doesn't seem quite right if you're singing sort of Frank Sinatra songs to not be using a microphone.
Yeah, you can't belt at the same time as trying to be a crooner.
It's a different voice, yeah. But certainly it's we don't need them, but it's right for what we do.
It's amazing as well how the audience pick up on certain songs. I'm thinking of You Raise Me Up, which has become a standard in this country for people who sing well because it crescendos, it does everything an audience wants, it gets bigger and bigger.
It's sort of taken on what Danny Boy used to do, probably for our grandparents.
That's a good point, yeah, absolutely.
I think, in many ways. And it was a Westlife song, that stands out as being one the main. They were the main singers of the song, I seem to think, and then it sort of filtered down through many groups. But it seems to be sung across the board. Pop song, classical song. Everybody seems to sort of have a version of it, don't they now?
Yeah, New Boys did it beautifully, I thought. And equally, we then go to something like Abide With Me, which couldn't be more different, but in the same way has the same effect.
Yeah, very difficult actually. The particular example you're probably thinking of is our version of it at the FA Cup final.
That's right.
And that's very, very difficult to choose how you're going to sing there, because obviously you've got the risk of being out of time with the band. You've got 80-odd thousand people singing it. They've got their own version in their heads, and probably a lot of them have had a few beers as well. So you're in a situation where you've got to try and not tell everybody you're there, but honour the song, because actually it's a very moving moment. It's a very, very... it's almost like the calm before the storm, isn't it? Literally. And we felt that we had to sing it like we were singing in church, and not just scream the end of it like I have heard done on numerous occasions. If it's high and it's loud, it's good, and it's not the way we felt we would sing it. But I noticed, there are so many technical things there that can go wrong because there's so much noise. If you can't hear things in your ear, you could be left not even knowing that the orchestra, the band is playing. Yeah.
I always feel bad when those people go viral who are waiting to hear their cue in their headphones or whatever they've got, and it doesn't come, and they're stood there looking stupid. It is a risk doing those live events, isn't it?
It's a huge risk, but I think you have to try and troubleshoot those risks. You're only as strong, to coin a cliche, but you're only as strong as your weakest link. And if, for example, the person pressing the buttons in your ear to give you your feed is somebody you don't know, then there is the risk that they don't do the job properly. So since almost the beginning, we've always travelled with our engineer Matt. He's always been with us, and he's very much the fourth member of our group. And he always makes sure, and we spend a lot of time getting things ready before the show. For example, even any of our theatre tours, we'll be in the theatre from as early as we can get in until the show at 7:30, 8 o'clock. A lot of the effort has already gone in the afternoon to make sure the sound and everything is correct.
Yeah, and that's a sign of a pro, isn't it? Being prepared for what might go wrong.
It's essential to walk in and think that it's all going to be set up and ready for you. Really, it's not. That's not the case in our experience ever. At any level, it requires a lot of effort. And you've had a 12-hour day before you stand on the stage at 7:30. That's for sure.
I wonder how you feel when you wake up in the morning on those big show days. Do you give a cough to see whether it's there? Do you panic? Do you worry about it, or que sera?
I think the older I've got, the voice is not something. I read something on Placido Domingo the other day, and he said it's not something he had any say over having. It was given him. And I do believe very strongly, without trying to sound too religious or spiritual about it, but I didn't ask for my voice, I was given it. What I then went and did was studied it and nurtured it. But I do believe quite strongly that unless I'm stupid, if I go and drink a bottle of vodka the night before, I won't expect to be able to sing the next day. But if I've done everything thinking my voice is a precious gift, then for the most part, I trust it'll be there. But if it isn't there, that's obviously when you wake up and you've got laryngitis or you've got a cold. Theatre has a funny way of finding your voice, I think, in 14, 15 years. And then I think before that, when I was in theatre and doing some musicals and opera and all sorts of things, I can count on one hand the times when I've actually been too ill to perform in all that time. And you know how it is. I mean, you've got a big interview or you've got something in Vegas or whatever you're doing. That moment that you know you've got to do it, for some reason you seem to stay well for the most part. Yeah. And then you crash afterwards. Many times over the years we've gone on holiday and literally the night of the beginning of my holiday I'm ill. Yeah. But I've not been ill working all the way through, touch wood.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Guys, you know, it doesn't. Illness tends to come in, creep in out of, in your rest periods, which is particularly annoying.
Yes. Yeah, just when you want to be at your fittest on a cruise ship somewhere.
You want to enjoy the family. Yeah. 2016
is looking amazing for you. You've got the Venice to Vegas tour, and let's just do some dates. 23rd of July, you're at St Martin's Church in East Horsley. The 9th of September is when the big run begins, the Queen's Theatre in Barnstaple. 10th of September, you're in Camberley Theatre. That's in Surrey. 18th of September, you're at Potter's Bar in Hearts. The 1st of October, you go to South Shields, that's up north, and the 8th of November at Wycombe Swan, High Wycombe. A great tour ahead. I'm going to come and see you and meet all the boys. You're a great talent collectively, and thank you for doing what you do, because you're the backbone of show business, people like you. And
very kind. I really look forward to seeing it. As I said, we've been on the tour started about 8 months or so ago, and then in the USA the early part of the year with the tour, and we're going back over to the States in January, February, March. And yes, so dates are constantly being added. So hey, we may even be up in the Nottingham way before we know it.
We'd love to see you. You can find out more by going to tenorsunlimited.com. That's the website. And really get to talk to you, Jem. Thanks for your time.
Lovely. Thanks a lot.